Hello, thanks for your company this Friday evening. First tonight, the region is facing a second day of disruption caused by Storm Babet.
Today, the east coast of Scotland has borne the brunt of the heavy rain and the gale force winds.
Our reporter Isla Todd is again in the Scottish borders for us, this time in Kelso, where there is still a weather warning in place. And Isla, how has the amber alert affected people where you are?
Well, it's making people miserably wet and miserably cold as well, with that wind just making the weather so much worse. It feels like it hasn't stopped raining for the last 2 days, and you can see a consequence of that is the River Tweed has just risen up these banks. Now, that amber alert applies to here in Kelso, in Lauder, in Melrose, and right up to the east coast as well, to Copath as well. But we shouldn't be surprised by this sort of weather. Ross has certainly been warning us for a couple of days it's been coming, and we are certainly prepared for it as well, as we've been hearing from the council.
Flooded roads, fallen trees and a few power outages. So far, the worst of Storm Babet has been further north in Aberdeenshire and Angus, but the council here are already taking action.
So the council has been taking a range of precautions in response to the adverse weather situation that we currently have in place. Our sandbag stores are full, and we've cleared grills across the region where there is a potential for those to be blocked and to cause flooding, and we've deployed barriers in Eyemouth in response to a potential risk around overtopping of waves as a result of high tide.
The worst of the weather is in Aberdeenshire and Angus, where there was a red alert for rain in place until midday today, and the Met Office have issued another for all day tomorrow. Portpatrick Coastguard have been sent to Brechin in Angus to offer more support. 2 people have already lost their lives in the storm, and thousands have been forced to evacuate. There's a flood alert in place across the borders and in parts of Cumbria, and a flood warning for Greenlaw to Allerton.
We were asking people to be very vigilant at this time, to take care in terms of their travel arrangements, to be aware there may be flooding on roads, there may be tree debris. The council has stood up its multi-agency response centre, working with our community planning partners. We think we're well prepared for any eventualities the weather may throw at us over the next 18 hours.
We've had 2 days of heavy rain already, and there's more still to come. The yellow weather alert for rain doesn't end until midnight tomorrow. The amber alert for rain doesn't end until 6 a.m. tomorrow. The ground is sodden and the rivers are swollen right across the borders. And over on the east coast, there's still a yellow alert for wind, and that's causing ferocious waves coming up onto the east coast near Coburn's Path.
We're taking the amber weather event very, very seriously. This is a serious weather event that's affecting large areas of the borders. We think we're well prepared for that event, and with our community planning partners and local resilience groups, we'll be prepared to deal with whatever the weather throws at us. We hope it will not be no communities will be severely affected, but should the event arise, we'll be prepared to respond.
We're no strangers to too much rain. Sandbags are available at key points, and there's plenty of hope it will all blow over before it gets any worse.
That amber alert doesn't only affect parts of the borders, it also just crests eastern parts of Cumbria as well. So if you are involved in that weather alert area, please travel with care, as we're being warned to do so. Drivers have certainly seen areas affected by road surface water and road debris as well as they've been travelling around. And the yellow alerts do cover both parts of ITV Border north and south of the border as well. Now, it's not just drivers that should be aware of travel disruption. The trains as well are affected north and south of the border as well. Network Rail in particular are warning of some disruption in the Cumbria area. There are also 4 flood alerts in place across Cumbria, and Network Rail have also been asking people who live nearby to train tracks for a slightly unusual request as the weather gets worse.
It's not only rail travellers that we're appealing to today, it's also people who live by the railway lines, because loose items in gardens can actually get blown away by strong gusts in weather like this. So things like trampolines, fence panels, sometimes even sheds can get onto the tracks and they can cause unnecessary disruption and more work for our team to clear up. So our advice is please tether any loose items down in your garden so they don't go on the railway.
So lots of bad weather expected as we go into the weekend, unfortunately, and it's due to not get any better until at least Saturday is over. We are all hoping, though, that this is about as worse as it gets. We're all hoping that the tragedies that we've heard earlier coming from the more northern parts of Scotland are not repeated, and that Storm Babet is done with causing tragedy and loss of life.
Isla in Kelso with news from around the region. Thank you very much indeed. Isla Todd there for us.
And Ross joins us in the studio. Ross, there are still weather warnings in place tonight, aren't there?
Yeah, well, as we've just seen, it actually lasts into tomorrow, so into the weekend. It's been a very, very active few days. We have that brief lull, but the rain's never been too far away. This is what it's looked like over the last 24 to 36 hours. It's just been streaming across parts of the region, and there is a real contrast in rainfall towards the east, where it's being caught on that higher ground. Really unusual direction for the winds to come in from the east. The rain as well, 100 millimetres, around 4 inches in 48 hours, and under 10 millimetres in places in the west. So that really does point out that contrast there. So yes, more rain to come. We do have warnings in place. The amber rain warning here, east facing slopes again until 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. Could add more millimetres to those already very high totals. And there's a yellow wind warning until midday tomorrow. East Coast and Cumbria was actually added to the mix earlier as well, with some gusts of up to 60 miles an hour. Now, some questions over exactly what the colour coding actually means, and I think it is worth taking a quick look at that. So we do have yellow warnings in our region at the moment. That's be aware, there could be some damage and disruption. Obviously, we've got an amber warning. That's the next grade up. Be prepared for some major impacts like flooding or power cuts. And red, that's very rare, but we have seen those in northeast Scotland over the last couple of days. Dangerous, life-threatening conditions. By the end of tomorrow, those have been lifted for us, but of course we need to keep an eye on those river levels.
Yeah, absolutely, Ross. Thank you very much indeed. And Ross will be back with a full forecast a little later on in the programme.